my house right there.
Can you still open it?
Yeah, actually I can. It's FAB, FAB. It's really easy to remember. Thank you, Mick. Thank you, everyone. We're not going to pass a hat again if you'd like to drop something else in. Everybody was very generous the first time around, so if you'd like to drop anything else in, it's on the table that used to have the cookies on it. Thank you, everybody, for contributing to the refreshments tonight, and thank you, Mick, for hosting, and all the storytellers being here. I've been back in the back timing everybody, and everybody's been doing really well. Now I have to time myself. I'm really bad about time. I blame it on ADHD, but basically me and time have never respected each other. This is a Bynum story. It happened in 1991. It was a few days before Christmas. It was Friday, and I was the person that always did the schedule at the Health Sciences Library where I worked. And so the person that does the schedule is always the last person to be there when there's a holiday coming up. So I was closing the library at Friday evening about 6 o'clock, and the phone rang, and I answered it, and it was my neighbor Rebecca, not the Rebecca that's here tonight, but Rebecca Tucker. And there's no moss ever grew under Rebecca Tucker's feet. She moved into a Bynum house and dug up the entire backyard, cut down all the trees, and planted a garden, and proceeded to can 141 quarts of green beans that summer. And her favorite saying was, "If you starve in Bynum, it's your own damn fault." One time I'd had a little bit of a back trouble, and a physical therapist said, "Okay, well, you're doing much better. It's time for you to get out and move around a little bit. Walk level ground, on pavement. Don't really go out on the trail or anything. But just get a couple of laps around the block in Bynum." Well, the first night I did one lap. It took me 3 hours. Came home with a loaf of banana bread, 4 bottles of homebrew, and Rebecca Tucker had fed me fried cornbread, fried squash, fried okra, and pork chops. And I think she sent me home with a couple of jars of jam, too. So that night in the library at Christmas, the phone rings, and it's Rebecca, and she says, "Sandy, we're having a little party at my house. I got a big old pot of soup made. Just come on whenever you can. Are you closing the library? What time are you getting off for?" I said, "Just in a few minutes." "Oh, come on. So I close up the library, lock everything up. We're going to be closed for a week at Christmas. And I head onto the parking deck, and the wind's really blowing. And I had worn a winter white silk dress that day with a green wool jacket, like a bolero jacket, and red high heels. I was, a flat fashion plate, because it had been our Christmas party at work, and I had been one of the hostesses, so I had totally dressed to the nines. And so I'm going across the parking deck at the hospital in front of UNC hospitals, and the wind's blowing up my skirt, and that white wool silk dress. I was going, this might be the wrong outfit to have on today. And I get to Bynum, freezing, and I get to Bynum, and I got a little bit of a winter coat on, but not any gloves or muffler or long winter woolly, union suit like I needed. And I get to Rebecca's house, and the place is just packed out. And I didn't go home first and change because, God forbid I miss anything. So the whole place is just packed out, and it's like before you knock on the door, you hear all the party sounds inside this place, and before the night's over, every single person there is going to be like your best friend. And I go on in, and I didn't even knock, I just went on in, and I wiggled my way through. There's a little 3-room house, a living room, bedroom, and a kitchen, and a bathroom off to the side, and I wiggled my way through, and it must have been like 150 people in this like 800 square foot house. And I finally get to the kitchen, and Rebecca, she always hugged you great big and thumped you on the back. "Hey girl, how are you? I'm glad you finally made it. I got a big old pot of soup here." She turns around, and there is a pot of soup that's about the size of this speaker sitting on top of that electric stove, covered up like 3 of the 4 burners. The other burner had green beans on it, of course. And then over on the side was a table, a sideboard, and it was just full as you could. Pecan pie, she'd picked the pecans herself and shelled them out. She'd made black walnut cake, she'd picked the black walnuts herself and shelled them out. There was corn, she'd picked the corn and shelled it out too. I mean, on and on and on and on and on, just incredible food. And I'm eating and stuff and eating. Oh, it's just so good. And that vegetable soup, it was, I mean, I could have just got in that big old vat of vegetable soup and just took a bath in it. It was so good. Dipped a little fried cornbread in it, and it was really good. So, but I was only there a few minutes before I realized everybody was all scrunched together, and it's like somebody needed the salt on one side of the room. We just handed it one to the other, to the other, to the other, till the salt never touched the ground, you know. And in between each two people, there was like a bottle. It was like a liquor bottle. We weren't talking about wine and Pabst Blue Ribbon here. We're talking about liquor. Up in the mountains where I come from, you know, that stuff's expensive. Well, that's it. You know, Granddaddy makes it for you. But anyway. And I thought, heavens to Betsy, everybody here is getting just tanked out of their mind. I thought, well, you know what? It doesn't matter. In Bynum, we all live like that close together. If you're too drunk to drive home, pray to the Lord you're not too drunk to walk home. Once or twice that has happened to me. Last week, in fact. I'm not going to name any names. But I've had to be escorted home more than once. There's times I've been parked 3 houses away from my house, and I've not wanted to drive my car home. So, anyway, so we keep on, and there's a few people drinking, and I have a little nip or two, not to chill off. You know. Another bowl of soup, a little bit more fried cornbread, another piece of pecan pie. I'm about 8:30, 8:45. Rebecca comes in and goes, oh my gosh, we're going caroling. I'm about to forget, we were going caroling. I thought, 8:45, that's kind of late to start caroling. Well, she passes out some sheet music, and nobody had brought any flashlights, nobody had brought any candles. We all get our jackets and coats back on, and I'm still in my winter white silk dress and the little bolero and my high heels. I thought, well, I'll just carol around to my house, and then I'll go on in the house and change clothes, and I'll catch up with everybody, you know. Well, we start out. Number one, nobody can read this sheet music. Nobody sings. Nobody could read sheet music even if they could see it or had a flashlight. And when I kept looking at it, we were singing verses. I mean, I grew up in a Baptist church. We went like 3 or 4 times a week. I knew every Christmas carol backwards and forwards and could sing them in my sleep. I'd never heard these Christmas carols ever before. And even Christmas carols I'd heard before, I didn't recognize any of the verses. It was like some, you know, Dollar General off-brand Methodist Christmas carols or something. And it was the most god-awful sound you'd ever heard in your life. And it was cold. It was about 12 degrees. And you know how sound carries when it's really cold? And so the entire valley was emanating with jingle bells, oh, what a fun. What's we have tonight? Times about 30 people. And just to put the icing on the cake, there was a 7th grader that had just started band, and he had a trombone. Oh, it was horrible. The dogs were hiding under the beds. They weren't even howling. They were just hiding. About the 4th or 5th house, I was so embarrassed. I was so, oh, thank goodness it's dark and nobody's got a flashlight. Nobody knows it's me. And I'm freezing to death in my white silk dress. About the 4th or 5th house, we finally figured out, you know, if you're caroling, you only have to know 3 songs. You don't need no Dollar General Methodist off-brand cheap music. Everybody knows Jingle Bells, Silent Night, and We Wish You a Merry Christmas. Everybody knows those 3 songs. Well, everybody in this area in North Carolina anyway knows those 3 songs. And so we start singing. We would sing Jingle Bells, then we'd sing Silent Night, We Wish You a Merry Christmas, and then we move on to the next house. They didn't know we just sung the same thing. So by the time we get around to my house, we're actually sounding pretty good. And the trombone, even the trombonist knew Jingle Bells and Silent Night and We Wish You a Merry Christmas. So I thought, well, you know, I'd go stand up on my steps and they'd carol me. And I thought, well, you know, God forbid I miss anything. I'm just going to go on in my high heels and my winter white silk dress. I won't freeze to death. It'll be all right. I got a jacket on. So we head on up the hill. Catty corner. We're singing to Heather and Jeremy. And I happened to notice across the street, up the hill, catty corner the other way, is Miss Louise Rigsby's bedroom light goes out. And Miss Louise Rigsby is one of the original mill workers. She was about 87, maybe 88 at the time. And she had just went to bed. The little old ladies on the hill, they all went to bed about, 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And we were pushing past bedtime, actually. And I thought, oh, wouldn't this be wonderful? Now, as we finish up, we wish Merry Christmas to Heather and Jeremy. I get everybody together. I go, y'all, I just saw Miss Louise Rigsby turn out her bedroom light. Let's go over there real quiet and get right under her bedroom window and sing Silent Night. And I could just imagine her laying in her bed, with probably her flannel nightgown on, staring up at the sky and, the beautiful winter night out there outside her window, and it's 12 degrees. And all of a sudden, the sound of Silent Night just wafted through that cold, crisp air. It was going to be like the angels themselves singing to her. There was only one problem with my plan. A 12-year-old with a trombone walks a whole lot faster than a bunch of drunk 30-year-olds. And it was like slow motion on the football game. I just watched the whole thing going down. I'm trying to run across the street in the high heels and my feet is killing me. And I don't want to scream because I don't want to scream and wake up to disturb Miss Mary Council or Miss Louise Rigsby. And he gets right under her window with that big old trombone and he starts out. About that time the bedroom light comes on. Poor woman, we probably scared her to death. We catch up with him by the time he starts the second verse, and so we climb in, chime in, and see, about halfway through the third verse, whatever, the porch light comes on, and Miss Louise Rigsby comes to the door with her curlers in her hair, a little, net cap on, and her bathrobe wadded up like this around her neck. And we go actually around to her front steps and sing her Jingle Bells and We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And she's like, y'all sound so good. Yeah, I just ain't y'all sweet coming to sing to me. I thought, that woman recovers really good to be 87 years old. So we head on around the hill and we sing to Miss Mary Council. Her house is dark. We sing to her anyway. We sing. Some people are up. They look out the window. So just go close the window back, curtains back. We keep on singing. And everybody that as they had left the party, now I didn't because I didn't have any pockets that were big enough, but everybody as they left the party, they had stuffed beer cans and liquor bottles in their back pockets and there's hoodies and they had proceeded to drink. There's antifreeze, it was really cold out there. And I'm walking around my high heels and my winter white wool dress, and finally we get around to the parsonage and it's about 11:30. And the lights are dark, but we are all stone-walloping drunk. And it's in the South, it's sort of insulting to show up at a preacher's house with stone-walloping 25 of your closest stone-walloping drunk friends. 11:30 at night when the preacher's already in bed. But we sang anyway. So we start our Jingle Bells, and the porch light comes on, the preacher comes out in his pajamas, and he's barefooted, and he's looking out. We were way back in the yard. Way, way back, like 40 or 50 feet away from the porch, with our hands up over our mouths, with jingle bells, jingle all the way, kind of holding on to each other for ballast. The trombonist was still with us and going strong. And then his wife comes out in her bathrobe and her kids come out in their footy pajamas and we sing Silent Night, and then we sing We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And they're like, yo, come on in. We got hot chocolate. We got homemade cookies. Come on in. We're like, oh no, we're good. We're good. Thanks so much. Good night. Thank you. And he's like, no, come on in. No, we're good. We're going to get back home. Bye. So we think, well, we've done this. We've not gotten hurt. We've sang to the preacher even and not gotten caught, being stonewalled and drunk. And we turn around and we walk out across the yard, and there is a swale. It's not even a ditch, really. And it was like onward Christian soldiers. The first wave fell in, and then the second wave fell in, and then the third, and then the trombonist fell in. I was laying upside down in that ditch with about 4 or 5 other people on top of me, and I thought, I'm so cold, and I'm so tired, and my feet hurt so bad in these heels. I think I might just lay here till morning. And then I thought, Cindy, honey, it's 12 degrees. You got to get up or you're going to die. And all the empty beer cans and the bottles, they all rolled out in the preacher's lawn as we fell into the ditch. And they were clinking and clanging, and the preacher was coming down the steps barefoot. Y'all okay out there? Everything all right? We're like, oh, no, we're good. We're getting up as fast as we can, picking up beer cans, stuffing them on my bra, wrapping them up in my jacket. I was ruining that winter bucket. So we decided at that point in time, we had better not carol anymore. We had pushed it as far as we could push it. We needed to get back to Rebecca's house and maybe, possibly call it a night. So we wandered back around the little trail between the parsonage, and that's where Martha Slattery lives now, if y'all know. It's across the street from Aja. We get back to Rebecca's house and have another bowl of that really good vegetable soup out of that big old giant pot, and a little bit more of that fried cornbread, and a couple more pieces of pecan pie. There was like 1 bottle of bourbon left. And we all poured out a little bitty glass full, about like that, except for the trombonist. We didn't let him have none. And we raised it up. And we decided that had been the best caroling party we had ever been on, ever in our whole life. Salute. Thank you all very, very much.